Well, welcome everyone. I'm glad you folks showed up tonight to talk about our conceptual license structure and fees. I want to welcome you all that are here. There's some restrooms out there if you didn't see them. We have comment cards. We also have the handout sheets out there for anybody who didn't get them. I'd also like to welcome everybody that's viewing us online. For those of you viewing online, this presentation is actually on the website as well if you want to go back to it. And there's also the handout sheets on the web page as well. And a dedicated email address to provide your comments on this. So here's how tonight will work. I'll provide this presentation. If you have questions, ask me. If it's something I'm going to get to later on in the show, I'll let you know that. I'll try to repeat your question for you so people watching online can hear it. We have several department staff here to help as well. Brian Wakeling, for instance, will be up here and he'll be capturing any points or notes up here on the flip chart. We have them, but also with your comment sheets, make sure you give them to us before you leave, or take them with you and send them in, or you can go online as well if you think of something later on. There's a lot of information in this presentation, and we really want your feedback on it. They're concepts at this point, and again, we need the public's input on it so we can further develop what we're going to have what our structure and fees will be. So with that, I guess I get my handy. Part of the reason we're here tonight is the passage of Senate Bill 1223. This bill allowed the Commission some authority it didn't have before. In particular, allowed us to simplify our license structure by allowing the Commission to set our license structure and fees in rule as opposed to legislation. The Commission already had authority to raise fees under legislation. I'll talk a little more about that as we go through this, but ultimately, this allows the Department Commission to operate more like a business, to react to customer demands and market conditions at a more rapid pace. As most of you probably know, but if you don't, we receive no general tax dollars. Our revenues are derived from hunting, fishing license sales, the Heritage Fund, Wildlife Conservation Fund, federal excise taxes on hunting and fishing gear, and a few other sources like with the OHV Fund. But a big part of it is our Game and Fish Fund, which is what we're talking about tonight when we're talking about license structure and fees. This new authority gives the Commission the flexibility to adjust these, again, in a more timely fashion. We spent a lot of last year meeting with a lot of the public and our different conservation groups with the legislative piece, and this bill was supported by 24 organizations. There were some checks and balances added into this legislative authority during the process. The first one you see, that the legislature always maintained budget oversight in terms of approving what our appropriation is. Senate Bill 1223 also added in an annual reporting requirement to the legislature, so we have to report to them every year what changes were made, whether it's in the structure or the fees. And this authority essentially sunsets in 2019, meaning it goes away. The only way to maintain it would be to run another legislative bill to reauthorize it. Also attached to it was a financial audit of the department by January 1st, 2015. And the last one there was added in that the Game and Fish Fund, where our license and tag dollars go, can't exceed the FY13 appropriation by more than 50% of what it already is. So a little bit of history here and just some background on it. Prior to Senate Bill 1223, the Commission could not change the license structure. And there's a few examples I'll show you here in a bit where that was problematic. The Commission did have the authority to raise fees up to a statutory cap for both licenses and tags. They also had the authority to establish a Class A or premium structure if they chose to do so. Fees have not been raised since 2007. The Commission originally made a commitment not to raise fees for 5 years when they were set in 2007. It's been almost 7 years now. Any new structure and fees that can be implemented or they'll be implemented through this process won't happen before January 1st of 2014. Our new structure and fees will be based on value to the customer, and you'll see some examples of that in our concepts that I'll show you. Obviously, the big one is customer input and feedback, hence why we're here tonight and why we'll be doing more meetings around the state, and then ultimately be a commission decision. Here's the process we're going to go through. After SB 1223 was passed, kicked us into this phase we're here. The initial concepts that you'll see tonight were presented to the Commission in Kingman a couple weeks ago. They were approved by the Commission as concepts to get feedback from the public on. We're going to be gathering that input right now. We had our first meeting last week, and we have them throughout this week, but that'll be going through June to the June Commission meeting. At the June Commission meeting, we will be presenting the Commission a draft rule, which would be the draft license fees and structures, and go back out for another public comment period on those. And then we'll be back to the Commission at the August meeting for them to make a final decision and approval. And then again, as I said, the new license structure and fees would be implemented January 1st of 2014. Our statewide meeting schedule, last week we did Pine Top. Tonight we're here in Phoenix. We also have a meeting going on at the Mesa Regional Office. And then you can see we'll be going to Flagstaff on the 22nd, Kingman on the 23rd, Yuma on the 22nd, Tucson on the 21st, and then again Region 6 is in Mesa tonight. And other meetings that are already scheduled would be the May Commission meeting I just spoke of in Kingman, but then we have the June Commission meeting in Payson and the August Commission meeting in Flagstaff. There's several ways for you folks to comment, and again, we really want your comments on these things. Obviously, at our public meetings that I just described, we'll be taking comments here, both on the chart and also through the email and through the comment cards. We have a dedicated web page that has all the information, including this presentation and the information leading up to the passage of Senate Bill 1223. There's a dedicated email address on that web page where you can put your comments in and email directly to us. So if you have more that you remember, use that. And then obviously the upcoming commission meetings. This will be on the agenda of both those commission meetings in June and in August. So what we're here to talk about tonight is our conceptual structure and fees. It's important to note these are not recommendations. These aren't a recommended structure right now. They're just simply for input, a place to start to get your feedback on different concepts. When we built these concepts and through this process, a few things we looked at. Number one was trying to remove barriers for recruitment of new hunters and anglers, and that can be accomplished in some different ways. One would be the simplified license structure, bundling privileges, which you'll see some examples of that, and then also reduce costs for youth. At the same time, we have to be able to maintain revenue and services. And we also looked at the fact that hunters and anglers do pay for wildlife conservation. A large majority of the burden to fund conservation comes through hunters and anglers through their license and tag fees and through the excise taxes they pay on the equipment they purchase. So with that, we considered all the statutory fee caps that were in place before SB 1223. And in some cases, we did some Western state comparisons, and we'll show you why that's kind of difficult to do in a lot of cases, but we do have some of those tied into here. In talking about maintaining our services and our revenue, obviously we have some budget challenges. The cost of doing business has went up significantly since 2006, and here's just some examples. Our helicopter surveys have went up 43%. Our fuel for vehicles, which all of you are completely aware of, went up dramatically. Fish production prices have also went up. Urban stocking for catfish purchases have went up 44%, for trout 11%. For our hatchery production, for the urban program, those fish are bought from private fish farms. But our hatchery costs for producing trout in the state have also went up 13%. There's been mandated employee benefit costs that have went up dramatically. Just a couple examples, our insurance costs have went up 69%, and our retirement have went up, in some cases, 92%. The PSPRS, that's our law enforcement folks. And at the same time, we have a steady or stagnant revenue stream. And if you look at the bars here, the olive bar is the revenue stream. And you can see from 2007, 2008 that it had declined, but then in the past 3 to 4 years, it's maintained relatively consistent or stagnant. This slide is our current license structure. If this looks really confusing, then it did its job. We have 44 different licensing options right now, which is very, very confusing for folks. And our goal is to try to simplify that. So I won't read through these. I just wanted to make sure people understood how complex the current structure is. And what we'd like to do is to move to a structure that maybe looks a little more like this. I'm going to go through each one of these license by license with what the privilege would be and a conceptual fee, so I won't read this for you, but essentially we're talking about going from that 44 down to a number in the 10 range. And depending on who you are, whether you're resident, non-resident, or youth, or adult, there's fewer options. So let's start out with the resident fishing license. Right now, a current resident fishing license costs $23.50. If you add a trout stamp to that, you're at $39.25. About 50% of our anglers do add the trout stamp. If you add a 2-pole stamp, you're up over 40. If you're fishing urban, that's another license. You're at 1850. And if you the California, Nevada stamps, if you're fishing on the border waters between those states, Lake Mead, Lake Havasu, Lake Mojave, you're also looking at a couple additional stamp charges for a total of just under $70. Another option is people can buy the Superfish Conservation License, which includes the general fish, the trout, and the urban privilege for $53. These licenses all are good for the calendar year, so no matter when you buy it, they expire December 31st of that year. The conceptual license and privileges and fees we'd like the public's input on is a fishing license that would be good to fish. It would be good for trout. It would be good for 2-pole. It would include the community, which in this case, the community is the urban program. It would include the California and Nevada stamps, and there's an asterisk there because those two stamps have an agreement with those two states that we're currently working with them on to see if we can adjust that. And this license would be valid for 365 days from the day you purchase it. And the conceptual fee that we'd like input on would be $37. Moving to non-resident fishing license. We don't sell a lot of non-resident fishing licenses in this state, but the ones we do sell a significant number are the top two there, the 4-month and the 5-day licenses. We also have a Colorado River only license and then a Superfish that's $63. And the two below that, I put those on here because before I said the commission did not have the authority to change the license structure. There was a couple mistakes that we had, and one was the non-resident fishing license was $70 and a non-resident trout stamp was over $57. But if you look above at the Superfish, you can actually buy that for half the price and include all those privileges because it was just a mistake. It happened, but we couldn't change it. Obviously, a lot of people didn't buy those, and we directed them to buy the Superfish license. But this authority allows us to clean up those types of things. The conceptual license and fees we'd like public input on are again similar to what the resident would have in terms of privileges: the fish, the trout, 2-pole. Community, the stamps, and again being valid for 365 days with a conceptual fee of $55. Our urban fishing program, or urban fishing license, and again we're going to be changing the name of this to the community fishing. Right now an urban license is $18.50. It's only good on those designated urban waters. And if you add a 2-pole stamp to that, which is the one privilege a lot of people do add, about 50% add that to it, you're at $24.50. Again, that license expires at the end of the year. The conceptual license and fees we would like your input on will be a community fishing license that would be valid at designated waters only. Again, if we go back to the resident, non-resident general license, those would also be valid at on urban waters. This would be the same for residents and non-residents. It would include a 2-pole stamp. It would also include any expansion waters, and right now the department is looking at various expansion waters in the Phoenix area. I think there's 7 in the Phoenix area, possibly Tempe Town Lake, and then 4 in the Yuma area. That license would be good for 365 days of purchase at a conceptual fee of $24. Resident hunting license. Currently it's good for small game, valid to put in for big game, and valid for the calendar year at $32.25. There wasn't the hunting license is a little bit cleaner. There's not so many stamp privileges associated with them as there was with fishing. So the conceptual license that we'd like feedback on would be a resident hunt that was good for small game, required for the big game draw, and also valid for 365 days with a conceptual fee of $37. The non-resident hunting license, currently it's $151.25. And again, it's good for small game. It's required to put in for the big game draw, and it's calendar year. One of the concepts we'd like feedback on is changing the privileges associated with a non-resident hunting license and making it a combo license, so they would also get a fishing privilege attached to it. And I'll explain that the reasons behind that with the next slide as well. But under this concept, the fee would be $160. It'd be good for all those things, but also be valid for fishing. To kind of add on to this would be the non-resident combo. Essentially, that would be replacing the non-resident hunt. Currently, the combo price is a little over $225. Very, very few of those are sold. It's less than 500 a year, so it's not a product that people are looking at. But if you added that privilege to the non-resident hunting license, it does a couple things. But one is if somebody's non-resident's lucky enough to get drawn, they can fish while they're here, or if they don't get drawn and they come to see family or whatever, they can use, you can still use that license and come and fish in Arizona, help out the economy, whether they're down here in the Phoenix area or up in the White Mountains or wherever, but it would just give them another privilege they could have to do that. So it's adding value to that license. So essentially this would go to, the non-resident hunting would just become a non-resident combo license. The resident combo currently is $54. If you, it includes a trout stamp with that. It's good to hunt, fish, and trout. If you add urban or a 2-pole stamp, you're at $60. If you add urban and the stamps, you're up to $84.50. The conceptual license and fee that we would like input on would be a combo that's good to hunt, fish, includes trout, includes 2-pole, the urban or the community, includes those California and Nevada stamps, valid for 365 days for a conceptual fee of $57. Youth licenses, probably some of the bigger concepts or the bigger changes that we're talking about are associated with youth. Currently, well not currently, before the passage of SB 1223, that we had 13 different definitions for youth, which was extremely confusing, not only for them, but mostly for their parents when they were buying them licenses. And some of those options included a combo license for $26.50, which was one of the more popular ones, and it was also valid for putting it for big game. And it was part of the family combo license, and I'll talk about combo licenses here in a bit. The youth were $20, or there was a youth hunt for $15. And youth combo costs from the age of 10 to 17, depending on whether you bought one at 10 or you bought them at 14. Currently, youth 10 to 13 are not required to have a license to hunt small game or fish. So you'd be looking at $106 if you were doing over that 4-year period, or if you're putting it for big game, you're looking at $212 over that 8-year period. And under the conceptual license and fees that we're talking about for youth, that would be dropped to $40 for that entire 8-year period. So the conceptual license fees we'd like input on would be a youth combo, would be the only license available for those 10 to 17. It would be required for those 10 to 17, which is a bit of a change because, like I said, right now 10 to 13 don't need one if they're not hunting big game. It would be good for hunt. It would include the migratory bird privilege. It would include fish, trout, a 2-pole stamp, urban or community, the river stamps, valid for 365 days for a conceptual fee of $5. That's an 81% decrease from the combo license before. And talking a little more about that, we currently have a family license for hunt, fish, and combo. And under this conceptual structure, those would go away. But essentially, looking at the structure that we've just explained, I want to show some comparisons of what that is. Right now, a current fishing family license for a family of 4 costs $69.25. It includes fishing and your trout stamp. What the concept we're presenting to you would be adding privileges, including the 2-pole, the urban, the stamps, the youth hunt, and good for 365 days. So essentially adding $122 of value to that license for a conceptual price of $84. If you see on the right, the first and second spouse, and then the youth 1 and 2, and however many youth there be, they'd just be $5 each. With hunting, actually, it would be actually $4 less, or $4.05 less, and include youth being able to fish. And then for the combo, again, adding that $122 in value with the 2-pole, the urban, the stamps, and being good for 365 days, would be a little over $13 less than it currently would be under that current family combo license. Some of the benefits or added value to this is these could be bought at any time. They wouldn't all have to be bought together at the same time. And currently, our family licenses can only be purchased at a department office or online. These could be bought anywhere. And if the spouse 1 decided they wanted a license in May, and then spouse 2 added, then they added the kids, it wouldn't matter what time; they could do it at any time. Our short-term licenses. Currently, we have a wide array of short-term licenses. Most of them for non-residents, but there's some resident ones too. And those were a bit confusing to our public. So what the concept we'd like to get feedback from the public on would be going away from the 5-day fish, the 4-month fish, the half price, which is November, December, the 3-day hunt, and the 1-day fishes currently, and making them a 1-day combo. It would be good to hunt small game. It would not be valid to put in for the big game draw, but it would be good to hunt. It would be good to fish, and would include all the fishing privileges we've talked about in the general license. So that's if somebody wanted to fish for 1 day, they could have it. They could be bought consecutively. People could buy as many as they want, or they could be non-consecutive. You could buy them every 3rd Tuesday if you wanted to. But essentially, we'd be going from right now the resident one-day fish and non-resident one-day fish are $16.25 to $17.25. This would become a resident one-day hunt fish combo. Again, not valid for big game, for $16 a day. And then the non-resident side of it would be a conceptual fee at $20 a day. And that was compared to that to the non-resident 3-day hunt that's currently there is $61.25, so it's roughly the same price as that. The only stamp that we're talking conceptually that we would probably retain would be the migratory bird stamp. Some of you may have referred to that as the HIP stamp. Currently, we do have a HIP migratory bird stamp for $4.50. We also have a state waterfowl stamp that's required to hunt waterfowl for $8.75. That's in addition to the federal duck stamp requirement, which we don't have authority over. That federal duck stamp requirement will still be required for anybody 16 and older to hunt waterfowl. The conceptual stamp, in this case, and fee would be it would be a stamp good to hunt migratory birds, which is typically dove, is the one most people refer to. Waterfowl would not be required on that youth license. That would already be a privilege they have, and the conceptual fee would be $5. And here's just a review of what we just went through and a summary of the current price ranges to the conceptual fees we'd like feedback on, as well as the privileges. And on your handout sheets, that includes what the new license concept would be, including the privileges and the fee. So if you have thoughts on it, obviously you can refer to that. In addition to the hunting and fishing licenses, there's other licenses that we have that we would retain. A couple examples, the Pioneer license, we'd obviously still have that in place. There's 5 classes of lifetime license that we would still keep. The benefactor license, if anybody even knows what that is, that's essentially a donation. When somebody buys a lifetime license, they add money onto it, up to $1,000, I believe, and that goes into essentially a donation account or the Game and Fish Fund. We have the honorary Boy Scout and Girl Scout, which is $5 up to the age of 21 for someone who's attained the level of Eagle Scout, or in the, I always forget what the Girl Scout, the gold for the Girl Scouts, up to 21. Essentially, since there's a $5 youth license up to 17, they could have that one, but out from their 18 to 21, they could still do a $5 honorary Scout one. Disabled veteran, no changes to that, or the youth group, the apprentice. We are actually considering adding an apprentice fishing, though. Essentially, that allows a license holder to take a non-licensed person with them for 2 days. The apprentice hunting, it's good for small game. You can take somebody who doesn't have a license for up to 2 days off that. And again, trapping, falconry, guide licenses, those are maintained where they're at. And there's other various licenses that aren't necessarily hunting and fishing related that would be maintained. They range from fish stocking, white aimer stocking, to hobby licenses, zoo permits, game bird license. There's a whole variety of those that we're not addressing here. Moving on to the conceptual tag fees, and I have to make a couple points. Again, we did look at the prior caps on these when we came up with the concepts. It's important to remember that the commission already had authority to raise fees on the tags. They have not raised them since 2007. So SB 1223 did not add authority that the commission had, other than the cap is no longer in place. But they already had that authority. They also had prior authority to establish Class A, or what we're going to be referring to as premium here. So we'll go through all those in order to get your feedback on those ideas. This is probably the busiest slide we have. It is represented on your handout. I'm not going to go through it line by line. But essentially, on the first column, you have resident and non-resident tags. The deer, elk, and buffalo are not included on here. We'll get to those specifically. It has the current fee, it has what the old cap was, and then it has the conceptual fee that we'd like your feedback on. The two at the bottom are kind of interesting. With pheasant, there currently isn't a fee associated with the tag, but there is an application fee. And with sandhill crane, it's the other way around. There's a tag fee. It's $7.50 per tag, and currently I think there's 3 crane tags if you're drawn, meaning that would be $22.50. But there's no application fee. So those two are a little bit different. And I'll leave it up here just for a couple seconds for people to look. But I think everybody in the room has a handout, and those viewing from home, you can obviously open up that handout or go into this presentation on your own. Looking at buffalo conceptual tag fees, The concepts aren't much of a change from where they already were. It was more to try to get them to a number that was easier to remember, rather than ones that have all these dollar little cents attached to them and kind of these strange, 1 or 1,087.50. Just make it even rounded off. A couple of reasons, just makes it easier for people, and they're be less likely to make a mistake on their application. I will point out though that the resident Buffalo Bull and the resident Buffalo Any at $1,100 are the only two tag fees, conceptual fees that are being presented that are actually higher than the old statutory cap. The old statutory cap was what the current fee was for a Buffalo. They were already at the cap. Moving on to deer. Couple things we want to look at with deer, starting with just a general deer structure. The current deer tag is $34.75 for residents. The old cap was $50. The conceptual fee we'd like feedback on would be $45 for residents. The conceptual fee for non-residents we'd like feedback on would be $300, which is up from the $225, but still under the old cap of $325. And with all of the youth hunts, all the conceptual fees have not changed from the current fee for javelina, turkey, deer, elk, and I think I'm missing one. I can't remember, but those were all just maintained with what the current is. This is the first place we'll be talking about a concept of a premium structure that we'd really like your feedback on. Looking at a premium structure, the current fee again $34.75. Again, the commission already had the authority to do premium, or in statute was classified as Class A tags. So the old cap on that was $150. The conceptual fee to get feedback on will be $100 for non-residents. Excuse me, for residents, and $500 for non-residents. The obvious question is, what is a premium structure? And I'll get to that in the next slide. The other point I forgot to make earlier was the KIBAB stamp that's required for anybody who's drawn for 12A deer tags. The concept that we're looking at is just including that in with the tag fee. Those are all through a draw. No one would have, the person who got drawn for that tag wouldn't have to go through and buy another stamp. It gets to be included in the included as an addition or right with the tag fee when you purchased it. The conceptual premium hunt areas that we'd like feedback on. These would include all antler deer hunts north of the Colorado River, except for the Champ, and it would include all December white-tailed mule deer hunts, not including youth. Looking at and these numbers are all based off 2013 hunt recommendations. So if this was in place now, this is what it would look like in terms of the number of tags. For the north of the Colorado River hunts, again, it's the October firearms hunts and the November firearms hunts, and then the archery hunts. Those are all through the draw. Total of 1,945 permits, and then the December hunts, a little over 1,100 for whitetail and 140 for mule deer. So total, we're talking about, under this concept, of 3,190 permits based off 2013 hunt recommendations. Here's where we did do some comparisons with Western states, and again, it's really difficult to do because all states manage differently. Their hunts are structured differently. There's a lot of over-the-counter tags in some of the other states. It just makes it a real difficult thing to look at. But in this case, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming do have premium hunt structures for deer. So we did put these comparisons up there for you to take a look at if you're interested in them. I'll move on. Again, if you want to look at those, you can go to back to the web and the presentation. Looking at elk, the commission has asked us to get public feedback on input on some different considerations here. One would be a general structure, one would be an antlerless versus a bull structure, and then the last one would be a premium structure. So we'll start with the general. Current fee for all elk tags for residents is $114. The old cap was $150. The conceptual fee we'd like feedback on is $145 for residents, and then you can see the non-residents were at $587 with an old cap of $775, and we'd like feedback on a non-resident concept of $650, and again, youth, no change from what the current is. Looking at the bull versus antlerless concept, again, current is $114 for both. Under this concept, we'd like feedback on $125 for antlerless or cow, and then $145 for bull. And with non-residents, This concept of actually dropping it down for non-residents a little bit on the cow side came from a couple comments we'd received, so we'd like feedback on it. One was we issue about 1,100 elk tags to non-residents each year. Over 900 of those are for bull. That's what people are putting in for. And we've had people talk to us anecdotally saying they have a family member who's moved to another state, but they always used to come back and hunt antlerless elk together. And that 587 was a lot. So it's just a concept we'd like people's feedback on. And then with the bull at 650, and again, no change with the youth. So moving on to the premium structure concept. Again, the old cap for a resident premium or Class A was $350, and the conceptual fee we'd like feedback on will be $200, or just the get your feedback on the premium structure concept. For the non-residents, the old cap was $3,200. The conceptual fee that we'd like feedback on is $1,000. And again, here's what those would include under this concept that we'd like your feedback. It would include all late September, early October general muzzleloader hunts. It would include all early archery bull hunts. Would include bull hunts that are happening on Camp Navajo or the Hopi lands occurring in that same time frame. And these premiums, they will differ from year to year, or would differ from year to year. Units with early general muzzleloader hunts rotated in and out of that time frame. It totaled up that using 2013 numbers, that's a little over 4,500 bull elk tags that would be included into this concept. And again, looking at some comparisons with other western states that do have a premium structure for elk, we put these up there so you could take a look at what New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming would do with their premium structure. Again, I won't read through all this, but I'll leave it up here for a few moments so you can look at it, and then if you want to go back to it, you can see it on the web. Okay. I mentioned earlier that it's really tough to compare states. And here's just an example of what we're talking about. If you look at these other western states and the number of elk tags they issue, there is a large disparity. It makes it really difficult to make any real meaningful comparisons with them. So this is just to let the public know that what those differences are. And obviously some states are a little closer than others, but it is quite different in Arizona than most of them. It's also different in how they manage and how they issue these tags as well across the states. We're getting almost to the end here. The other thing we'd like to get the public's feedback is the application fee. The current application fee to apply for the big game tag is $7.50. The conceptual fee we'd like feedback on would be at $13. We put some state comparisons on here to show that they do range quite a bit. Different states do different things, whether it's difference between a resident and non-resident, or just different ranges for different species. Nevada's that range there. I think they have different fees associated with different species you're putting in for. And another thing the commission would like feedback on is should there be a different application fee for whether you're going online or whether you're putting in a paper application. So we'd like feedback on that. And I also want to make the point that in Arizona, your bonus point is included with the app fee. That's not the case with not all other western states. Some may do that, but we're pretty, well, I'm not sure if any of them do. They may not, but we know a lot of them do not. Some other things the commission's talked about with this new authority. Again, not only will the commission be able to set the structure and fees, but they will also be able to provide discounts or short-term discounts for different things. But they wanted us to be looking and thinking about some other items, and I'm basically just presenting them here. So if you have ideas, we'd actually like to hear them. One of the ideas that's come up with is a frequent hunter discount that maybe if a hunter puts in for several species over a certain period of time frame, that they get a discount either on their application or something like that. Again, there's no hard ideas here. We're just trying to think of some different things. Another one the commission talked about just this last month was a sort of an insurance program for when you put in for the draw. For some reason happens, you you accidentally put in for the wrong tag when you've been playing for bull for 14 years and you accidentally put the wrong hunt number and got a cow tag. With the insurance would allow them to maybe turn that tag in to retain their bonus points, or if a family member or individual has some health issues that came up and they got drawn but they couldn't go. Those are the type of concepts. There's no hard and fast direction on this. We're thinking about it, but we'd like to get the public's thoughts on as we go down there what they think of it. Again, the SB 1223 did give the authority for the commission to do some temporary reductions in pricing to take advantage of market or customer demands or ideas. And we've talked about a variety of things that may apply to. One would be, if another wildfire type happened where no one was going up into the forest, and after the lakes got opened back up, would the commission want to give a short-term discount for somebody to buy a fishing license and get people up in the field? Just ideas like that. And then if the public has any ideas, we'd obviously like to hear them as well. So just to go back to what the process is that we're going to follow, we're on the second line here, gathering input on these concepts. We'll be taking the input we gather tonight and at the rest of the meetings and throughout this next month to develop the draft rules or what the draft license structures and fees would be. Take those to the commission in June, and they can obviously make any changes they'd like at that point. And then we go back out to the public with another comment period on what those draft rules are, or the draft license structures and fees. Make any modifications to the recommendation, and then bring that back to the commission for a decision in August. And then, again, any new structure and fees would be implemented January 1st of 2014. So with that, we're to you guys. If you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. But if you have any points you want to make, we will capture them. Brian's going to capture any comments you guys have, and obviously if you still have your comment cards too, we'll take those. But I'll open it up if anybody has any questions or comments. Go ahead, David.
How long would, if some of this stuff did get implemented, would it be for a 4-year period, or what are we looking at?
The question was how long how long would the new structure and fees be in place? Does that essentially capture it? Okay. Under this authority, the commission could change whenever they wanted to. I can tell you historically, I mean, obviously the last time that they did this in 2007, they could have still changed them. They didn't. They made a commitment to wait 5 years, and they went well past that. And I'll also point out that the authority goes away in 2019. We have to since we're giving a report to the legislature each year, the intent would be to try to be pretty consistent with these. I don't think anybody wants to have things changing all the time, but what this authority does allow is if there's a mistake made or some serious issue caused by what we did, they can go back and fix it if they need to. But I can't, it would be a commission decision on, ultimately it's a commission decision on how long this structure would last. Yes, sir, Randy.
Thank you for the opportunity to attend this meeting. My concern is for this resident premium tags. I do not like the concept of premium tags or premium units. I filled out my comment card with some more information on there, but thank you.
Okay. And just for the public, the comment was not liking the premium structure or the premium concept for deer and elk?
Correct.
Okay.
Premium units.
Premium units. Okay, understood. Did he capture that correctly? Okay.
Dislike premium pricing structure concept.
I dislike the idea of having premium units.
Okay.
Also.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I second his opinion about premium units. I think that it lays the foundation for future problems if we separate really the core crown jewels of what Arizona hunters really put their heart in. I mean, all the other species are very difficult to be drawn for. The thing that, guys like me on archery, that's the thing that, puts me in despair for a week if I find out I didn't get drawn. Same thing with the premium deer hunts. Those things that residents really value opportunity for residents down the road. And I think it also shifts a lot of people from those premium units into, you know, some of the better general hunts. And I think it's kind of like putting a barrier to entry in that doesn't need to be there. Just another quick comment on the fishing licenses. I noticed that you guys had pointed out that there were additional costs related to producing fish, but in almost all cases, we're reducing the fishing license costs and even adding fishing privileges for non-resident licenses, or that was part of the concept. And my question is, by doing that, aren't you really shifting the load to the non-fishermen to be able to support those additional benefits to the fishermen? Why are we doing that? Are we doing that to justify this premium hunt structure? Because based on my opinion,
Okay, the first part of the comment, just for those viewing online, was the echoing the dislike for the premium structure and concept. The second question, if I capture this correctly, was it appears we're lowering the fishing license. Our production costs were going up, but it looked like there's actually a reduction in the fees that we'd be collecting for fishing. And wondering if there's any connection with that, being supporting the primary or the premium structure. I can tell you the reason for the concept, the fishing license concept of adding all those privileges in. We've been talking to our customers for several years now, but one of the bigger issues that came up was it was really confusing on all the different all the different stamps you had to go attach to a fishing license to make sure you're legal to either fish for trout or fish up in certain areas like on the Colorado River, fish with 2 poles. So the idea was to combine all of that into one license that had everything. The conceptual fee takes into account what the current revenue we were generating from those different licenses was to be covered under this new structure. So does that make your sense? So there really wouldn't be any connection with the fishing license and the premium structure for hunts. I'm not sure if I captured what you were trying to say. Or, right. There's no direct, no correlation whatsoever with that. Yes.
Would those be handled through the regular drop, and would the bonus points, the current bonus point system, continue there, or would there be yet a separate drawing with a separate bonus point program, separate transaction costs, which would actually make these premium tags even more expensive than with the slide?
Okay. The question was, would the premium structure hunts, would they be handled through the regular draw, or would there be a different draw process for them? Obviously we don't do that now. The answer would be they'd be handled through the same draw process. If we went to a premium structure, they'd probably be just listed out, kind of like the deal you have muzzleloader, general, archery. They'd probably just listed as their own deal. It'd be through the same draw process that we do now. Did that answer your question? I'm not.
I was hoping for some desire or commitment that there wouldn't be. I know in Utah they actually have. I think have a separate drawing with a separate bonus points are tracked separately for those things.
Do you want to?
If you prefer to see that, if you want to make that statement, I'll capture that. If you prefer to stay it with the current draw system, if we go premium.
I would, yeah. I mean, I prefer we don't go premium at all, but should we go there? I would like to at least keep transaction costs low for everybody and have one single draw. Otherwise, I think they're, people will gain.
Okay. I think we captured that. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
One comment. I can appreciate the concept of allowing. There we go. I can appreciate the concept of allowing the urban program to be implemented into the residential program. There's been a lot of times over the years where we wanted to have an urban license but couldn't get it. You had to buy it separate. So I can appreciate that. So I take my hat off to that concept. I hope we push forward on it.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. David, go ahead.
I would just like to echo what Randy started down there with these premium tags. A little disappointed to actually see it, and the reasoning for me is that I think that you are putting up barriers, for hunters there by doing that. I understand that, but I also think that you are going to have a lot of people that will not apply for those tags, and personally, it's not going to affect me. It's going to benefit me, but overall for hunting in general, I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think that you're going to put a lot of people into putting in for cow or the lesser wanted bull hunts. One of the nice things about our system now that we have in place is that everybody has the chance to draw that Unit 9, bull elk tag, even with no bonus points. And I hate to see that change because it puts a lot of, working people out of the ability to do that. One other comment that I did like something, Ty, that was brought up, a couple of different things. The hunt draw insurance, I think that could be a great program. Every year you hear about it. Some poor guy, a good friend of a lot of ours, Norm Pint, drew his once-in-a-lifetime desert sheep tag and was killed on his way to an elk hunt that year and didn't get to take advantage of that tag. Unfortunately, it got to go to, a young cancer kid, but that's not always the case. There should be some program in place that maybe that the tag could, if it wasn't able to be used, it could go to, just like the transfer program now, to somebody in the family, a grandkid or legal guardian or a kid that, that was a youth. Or it could just go right back into the next person in line to actually get that tag. Therefore, that tag is not wasted. And maybe even the person that turns it in wouldn't lose all of his privileges, as far as having to lose all of his bonus points and things like that because of certain issues came up in his life. Okay. One other thing, the discount for people that are putting in for all the hunts and different things like that, I think that would be a good program too. You got a lot of people, that could benefit from that because probably most of the people in this room are pretty avid hunters, and we probably put in for pretty much every species, spring and fall, and I think that would be a good benefit for a lot of people.
Thank you.
My name's Dar Colburn with the Arizona Bow Hunters Association, and I just wanted to bring up a couple points. I did a few numbers. I listened to your speech at the Desert Christian Archers when you came and talked to us. I, too, was a little disappointed when I heard about the premium hunt structure because, we sat there for 2 hours, and that was never brought up. And I'm learning now that I guess that wasn't really a part of this, but I certainly thought we would have discussed that. And most of our members, I would say, are opposed to that.
To the premium?
Correct,
okay.
Yes. And I just did a little calculation of the hunts I put in for myself with my wife and kids. And based on, for deer and elk this year, for the four of us, it was $595. And for this 2014, for the proposed for those hunts, it goes up to $1,050. So $455 for just deer and elk is the difference. So personally, I mean, as a working father, that's a lot. So I'm totally against the premium hunt structure myself. And you have units that might be close to your house that you don't travel very far to, and all of a sudden they're premium units. You're putting more cost on the consumer, your customer, and I just feel like if you raise these prices too much, you're going to alienate and lose your customer base, which you don't want to do. The simplification of the license fees, I think, is great, but I think in simplifying the licenses, and if you go to the premium hunt structure, you're not simplifying the hunts, you're actually making them more difficult and more confusing, which I don't think is good either. And the application fee going from $7.50 to $13, that's almost double. I think a lot of these fees, the customers will take an increase, but I think it's got to be a small increase, over time, not just a giant. I know you haven't raised fees since 2007, but to come on in 2014 and double fees seems a bit excessive. So,
Okay. And if you have specifics, like make sure you write them in your comment. What dollar value you think they should be at. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Is this necessary? I was just going to see if you could clarify what the point or what the value proposition is of a 365-day license relative to what we have now.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Okay, we've actually had, through our customer scoping over the past several years, that's been something people have brought up a lot. We did focus groups, we did surveys on it, and one of the things that came up is I didn't want to go buy a license if it was like March or April or June or August, or June, July, August. I'm not going to go buy a license because I'm only getting 6 months off it. Other states have went to a 365-day license. It obviously adds a lot of value because your license is good for a full year. Right now, if you're buying a license, even in March, you're only getting 75% of the value out of it because you already lost 3 months. So that's essentially the reason behind that concept. It has been very popular with the people we've talked to about it. Other states that have done it have told us it's been very popular with their customers. But it's just, again, that's probably adding more value than anything. It's adding more value. The one thing that's adding more value to these licenses than anything is the fact that it would be good for 365 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes some sense. It just seems like there's going to be an administrative component. People are going to have an anniversary date. Honestly, yeah. I know Utah does it, and Utah does a lot of things I don't agree with, so that concerns me. So I was trying to figure out really what are the impacts here.
Yeah, I mean we've been considering this idea for a long time now, and one of the bigger concerns or challenges of how we're going to remind people when their license is up, because we don't want somebody. Now you pretty much know December 31st you got to go get your license. The other places we've talked to, so that hasn't been nearly the issue they thought it would be. But you'll have a date on your license of when it was issued and when it expires. But then we can probably do some reminders, whether it's online reminders or possibly postcard. I don't know if we'd do that, but we could. My personal opinion of those concerns is they're much smaller concerns than I originally thought they were after we've worked through some of this stuff. There obviously is an administrative challenge with it, but I think we can handle that.
And just one more question about the premium hunt structure. I know on one of the slides that showed your revenue stream relative to your expenses, it kind of showed fairly recently that, I mean, it didn't look like there was as big a problem recently. It almost looked like you became more operationally efficient lately.
We did.
And so my question is, if that's the case, I mean, has there been a number put out there with clear impacts and benefits, a number you're striving for that are going to really deliver for sportsmen, or is this just, are we just trying to put as much money in the bucket as possible and with the, just suggestion that, things will get better the more money we have?
Right. No, that's a good comment. Well, since we don't know what the draft structure is going to be or what the final, it's really hard to project what this will bring in because these are just concepts at this point. I can tell you, if you look at those 2007 numbers to where we are now, we're about $5 to $7 million. If you factor in inflation, about $7 million less than we were at that point. And you did make a point, you saw over the graph there, that, yeah, we have had to become more efficient. And we've done a lot of cost-cutting measures. Many of our budgets were dropped down about 30% over the past few years to be able to handle that. We've left vacancies open. There's a variety of things. We can go down a whole list of the cost-saving measures we've been able to do in the past. But in order to get back to where at least we were or close to it, we're not going to be able to do that with this license structure alone. These fees won't get us there, and we all recognize that. That's another reason for adding value to the hunting and fishing license. Hopefully we sell more of them. We get more people out in the field. Bringing those youth fees down to $5 to hope to get a lot more youth involved, so when they become an adult, they're becoming lifetime license buyers. So it's really a long-term approach as opposed to just a one-shot trying to get it. So I hope that addresses what you were asking.
And just one more comment. So regarding that premium structure again, has there been any surveying done on the Game and Fish website, or a real strong push to get critter group affiliated people, their real opinion, and they provided kind of an alternative? Because obviously, if we're not going to do the premium structure, prices are going to have to come up a little more conceptually on what we call the general stuff, or what would ultimately be tags. I mean, I would imagine that we have really two choices if fees are going to go up, and it would seem like before we moved, before things moved into the premium structure, that the public would have some direct say through a survey or something to indicate if they'd rather see their overall prices come up a little more and still have access to trophy hunts, or go this other direction. I think that would be really nice.
It's a very good point. We are actually doing a survey right now. It's a random survey of resident and non-resident hunting, fishing, and combo license buyers. That survey started going out last week to mail them. Again, it's scientific, so they're random. People are chosen at random through that, and we'll have the data back on that in June. So we are doing exactly what you just said.
And that includes the premium?
Yes, it included all the concepts we've talked about today, including different price points and whether a premium structure is something they would favor or not. Good point. Yes, sir.
Just to give a little bit more clarification on the fishing and hunting license. Currently, right now, as of right now, I get the combo license for fishing and hunting, just a resident license, and I also get an over-the-counter archery deer tag for that. Now, when the January 31st deer season is over, now my question is how's that gonna?
Great question. Yeah, and I might not have the right or the best answer for you in terms of an over-the-counter deer tag. But one of the things that we also looked at is with our draw, there would be a time where a person putting in for the draw might have a valid license during the draw that's not valid during their hunt. Whereas currently now, just the way it's set up, you have a license for the draw, you're going to be valid for the hunt. So we recognize that would be a change, and the simple response is you still have to have a valid license to put in for the draw. You have to have a valid license to go hunting. It is maybe two different licenses now. Does that answer your?
Yes.
Okay, very good. That's a great question. We talked about that a lot over the past months when we were talking about the legislative proposal piece of this, and hadn't come up here yet. Good.
I just got a text from someone out of town. Are you taking questions off of your Facebook page? I guess there's some questions being posted on there.
Right now, we're not. I don't have access to them right now.
Okay.
But again, if people are sending us those emails in, we will look at their comments, obviously.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Richardson. Ty, I just had a couple things for clarification that I wanted to actually find out about. One is when is it actually the SB 1223, I believe it is, when does it go back to the legislature as far as this, when does it expire? Was that 2019?
2019, yes.
You also said that with the current SB 1223 that there is no longer a cap on any of the species. Is that correct?
Those were removed, right?
Okay.
They were in statute, and that part is removed along with the license structure.
Okay, and then my other question is the only thing that actually did go above the current cap was buffalo, and that was just slightly.
That was the only tag that did. There's one license that did. The fishing license did because we were adding all those privileges to that concept, so there was no way for that one not to. But other than that, everything else was below, yes.
Okay. Just another couple comments. One was about the junior hunters. I think all of us are for the junior hunters. I like what you guys are doing. I think the department has done a great job in the past with the junior hunters, providing opportunity and things like that. And one thing I would like to comment on, though, you said now kids between 10 and 13 years of age will be required to have a hunting and or fishing license. Is that correct?
They would be required to have that $5 youth combo to hunt small game or fish. Yes, that would be a change.
Okay. I don't think it's the $5 that's the issue, Ty. I would personally like to let that remain as it is. Unless they wanted to hunt big game, they were not required to actually have that license at 10 years old. There's not a whole lot of 10, 11-year-old kids that are putting a serious dent onto most animal populations, unless it's Dar's son over here. But I just think at kids at that age, they need every opportunity, and the parents don't need to be worried about trying to get them a license or something because they want to take them dove hunting in the morning and it's already 10 o'clock at night or what have you. I think that's one restriction that I would like to see remain as it is.
Okay, I appreciate the comment. And David, if I can, I'll just give you some reasoning about where we got to that concept with the commission. A lot of it comes into our hunter recruitment and retention programs, being able to track those people that go through it and keeping connection with them. And one way to do that is with the license, and that's why obviously $5 is not a nominal. It's not a monetary issue for most, I wouldn't think, but it would be a requirement that's in addition to what is now. But again, it was to be able to track them. It gets 3 extra years of that customer awareness with them and tracking them through time, hopefully to making them a lifelong hunter or angler.
Right. One other comment. You talked about a survey. I actually have a non-resident friend that received the survey. Is there a place on the survey where you are collecting comments and stuff about this where they can basically have an open forum where they can make a suggestion or something, or is it all multi-answered and stuff like that?
It's a mail survey, so it's not online. It is a hard copy mail survey, and I do believe there was a comments thing if they just want to add it, or they can just write on it, obviously. Typically they do that when we do mail-out surveys. People just write on the edges, but I'm pretty sure there was a comment section. I will check, though, David, tomorrow to find out.
Okay, that was just a concern of mine because my friend that received it said that there wasn't, and he certainly had a lot of comments that were not available.
And if, for your friend's case, make sure and tell him to go to our webpage and add all of his comments right there through the license simplification email account.
So back to the youth licenses. I know that with $5 licenses and the ability to apply to the big game draws at an earlier age and potentially start building bonus points, we know that bonus points don't just stop at the person that has them. They can combine together on a group application, and bonus point benefits can be shared by non-youth in that case. Has there been any talk of looking at how bonus points on group applications are handled, and making sure that we don't have people that are basically using others to improve their own odds?
We have not talked about that part as part of this process because the bonus points aren't attached to this. They're in Article 1 rulemaking, which I believe is under review right now. But the license simplification or the authority here doesn't really apply to what doesn't change anything with bonus points. So to answer your question, no, we have not talked about that I'm aware of. But we could insert that into the Article 1 review of those rules if we know if we have a better idea of what your concern is. I think if you're talking about like somebody has 10 points, puts in with 3 others that have like 1 point.
Yeah, I'm talking. It happens a lot. I know. I know people that do it. And now a non-resident hunting tag is $160, but it's $5 for their kid. It's not unreasonable to believe that somebody would take advantage of those lower fees, to build up a base of bonus points and potentially turn around and use them for a hunt for themselves later when the kid's 18, and that's really something that's unacceptable.
And they could do that now. I mean, right now a youth could put in for the draw for $15. So
yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a problem, but it could be more of a problem with the $5.
If you've got an idea on how you'd like to see that different, you can give us that comment. We'll share that with the rulemaking team or email it to rulemaking.
Rulemaking. Okay, I did include that in my. I did send some comments to the email box.
We'll forward it to the rulemaking team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I know I'm late, but my whole idea was just on the application fee that should be raised. I put in for a lot of different western states, and Arizona's a bargain for everybody that's for the application fee. I mean, I don't know. My thoughts were, and I didn't see it all. Like I said, I'm late for the meeting, but I think in some of the states it's around $20 per deal, and you look at all the people that don't draw. I'd rather have a little bit from I'd rather have a little bit from a lot of people than I had a whole lot from just a few people. The math works out really good this other way. So, yep, those are all the ones that told me I don't have a tag this year. That's the whole group.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, we're going to hang around for a bit. So if you have anything you want to talk to us about, we'll be here. Obviously, make sure you give us your comments, but don't let it in tonight. If you have other things you think of, go to the website and you can get them to us that way. This particular presentation was webcast. It was also going to be archived, so it'll be posted on the website so somebody can watch it again if they want to. If you have friends that couldn't come that want to see it, it'll be posted there for them to watch it as well. And we'll still be doing these the next few weeks and beyond, and then obviously coming back after June with another public comment phase. So I really appreciate you coming. I really appreciate you letting us know what you think, because that's what all this is about. We need your thoughts as we develop this and move on. So thank you. Oh, go ahead, sir. It can be emailed in, yeah. The easiest way is to go to the web page. That's the license simplification, and there's a dedicated email address right there. And it all comes right to those of us that are building this, so we get them and we can look at all of them. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, the other meetings are listed on the web page. There's one going on in Mesa right now as well. So we'll be going around the state the rest of this week and the rest of next week, and I think even into the next week. And also trying to go out and meet with some organizations as well. So, thanks, guys.
Excellent presentation. Thank you.